It really does seem to be going from bad to worse for Aspyr, doesn't it? What was once a franchise that this studio coveted to the point that they were literally building up the studio to carry on its legacy is now becoming something that maybe they regret just a little bit and is causing them so many issues. And while this hasn't necessarily hit the mainstream in any way, it is kind of an update to the Knights of the Old Republic 2 Restored Content DLC saga, which is something I have been covering on this channel, and I've got no doubt that some of you are definitely interested in seeing how it's developing, and here we are. But for those of you that maybe aren't up to date with the whole situation, I'm going to give a brief rundown on how things have got to this point. So when Aspyr announced the KOTOR 2 Switch edition over a year ago now, within that they advertised the Restored Content DLC that was going to come to the game at a later date, presumably Q3 of that fiscal year. Not only was this DLC advertised in the launch trailer, but it was advertised on their website, it was all over their social media, and I think a lot of fans, especially fans that had already played the game before, bought the Switch editions of KOTOR 2 with their main intent being to play this DLC, because it is something that I think a lot of people didn't get the opportunity to experience. And this DLC was the Restored Content mod, which is a fan-made creation that brought back all of the content that was removed from the original game. Now, once the game had released, the months went by and Aspyr was silent. There was absolutely no update on the DLC, no comment from the company, and during the wintertime I reported that people inside the company had told me that there was some kind of legal implication with the DLC. And as more months went by, there was more silence, and then on June 3rd of this year, nearly a year after its announcement, the company just came out and said the DLC is scrapped, it was cancelled, and that the company was going to be offering complimentary codes for other Star Wars games if you had purchased Knights of the Old Republic 2. Now, during this time, I was constantly tagged on Twitter and asked by people what was going on in regards to this whole saga, because I knew people inside of Aspyr, and I genuinely saw a lot of people saying that fans should come together and file some kind of lawsuit against Aspyr for the whole debacle, and people were really, really angry. And it seems that this anger has festered into action. Now, I'm not a legal expert in any way, shape or form, and while attempting to read this whole lawsuit, most of it goes over my head because I don't understand the jargon. But from what I can tell, this seems to be the basis of it. I will also leave a link in the description so you can read through the lawsuit where I read it yourself. A gentleman called Malaki Michalonis, I'm not sure how that is pronounced, officially filed a class action lawsuit against Aspyr Media and its parent company Saber Interactive on the 8th of July, which he is hoping goes to jury trial. And this is for violating the Californian Unfair Competition Law, Business and Professions Code, the False Advertising Law, and the Californian Consumer Legal Remedies Act. That is a lot of words. Now, as the plaintiff, he is being represented by his attorneys as himself, and all others that have been similarly situated, which is interesting. I assume this reads as he's essentially filing this lawsuit on behalf of everybody who's affected, but again, I could be wrong. The technicalities of semantics, especially in law, are very, very finite. It could possibly mean there's a number of people supporting the lawsuit officially, and maybe it represents them too, instead of literally everybody, but like I said, I don't know. Malachi's reasoning for this lawsuit is that he felt duped and upset, and that he didn't even play the game after purchasing it because he was waiting for the DLC, and after a year of not releasing it and cancelling it, they refused to offer refunds and instead gave people codes for something that wasn't relevant. Now, the semantics of the law here are funny to me in the way they are written, because he claims to have suffered an injury, in fact, and that injury was the loss of money due to the misleading, deceptive, and false advertising, and that it was Aspyr's intention to deceive consumers to artificially raise sales. There is then loads of Twitter evidence and stuff like that from other fans who have felt aggrieved, and what is funny to me is that I actually recognise a lot of these accounts, so I'm sure a lot of them would be interested in discovering that their Twitter accounts have made it into an official lawsuit. And then things go further into giving more explicit details about why it broke the codes and whatnot, and I'm not entirely sure what they're hoping to get out of this lawsuit in terms of like personal compensation or reward. Again, I'm not familiar with the jargon, but there is attorney's fees and costs, which is a given, and then there is also the pre-judgment and post-judgment interest and further relief as the court finds just. But I don't recall seeing like an explicit fee that they were expecting to get. The number 5 million was used earlier in the complaint, but I would be shocked if they were awarded anything near that for being deceived over DLC for a video game, but that number could be related to something entirely different. So again, I want to make it clear that I am no expert, I'm literally just reading it as I see it. So for those of you that do understand law and the technicalities, you are welcome to read it and provide additional context in the comments. And by the end of it, it seems that Aspyr and Saber have until the 4th of October to respond, so just over a week. Now, I'm not surprised that somebody has done this. As I mentioned earlier, the amount of tweets and stuff I saw of people saying that Aspyr should be sued was really, really high, so the fact that it's become a reality is not shocking to me at all. But here are my honest thoughts on the whole situation. So despite Mr. Malachi feeling duped and feeling like this was falsely advertised and that he was deceived, there was a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes which was the reason this DLC never got released, and I would imagine that Aspyr and Saber have got a pretty strong defense. This is a multi-million-pound company, and I would be surprised if they lost a lawsuit like this to an individual. I do think that the way Aspyr went about a lot of this was really quite poor, but as I have said in videos in the past, and as I've reported in the past, there were legal implications that essentially blocked this DLC from coming out, and this was what I was told by people inside Aspyr who worked on the DLC. And one of the core aspects of this lawsuit is stating that Aspyr and Saber were deceiving customers, which is a very strong claim, and that they had no intent to release it and they were simply using its advertising to inflate their sales. Now, in regards to this specific claim, I know it isn't true, like objectively not true. I know the DLC was ready to go, it was done, it was finished, and this is also further backed up by the original creator of the DLC, the fans who made it and who were working with Aspyr. They explicitly stated on Reddit that this whole debacle wasn't Aspyr's fault, and not only were Aspyr really good to work with, but they were planning to give complete credit to the fans who made the mod, and they actually went out of their way to defend the company on social media after the DLC was cancelled. And if that doesn't say something interesting, that the man who made the fan mod was defending the company that are being sued for deception, I don't know what does. So I'm confident that this part may be void, based on the things that I know, based on the interactions I've had with people in Aspyr, and my interaction with the original mod creator. There was no intent to deceive or inflate sales, and I'm pretty sure Aspyr will have the proof of that if they go to court. And when my sources brought this up, we would often have discussions about what it could have possibly been, and the one that we theorized the most was that it was fan-made and there was some kind of discrepancy over who owned it because it wasn't officially made by an officially licensed partner. But who knows. Now, regardless of all of this, it is still a massive shame that all of this happened. Knowing the things they wanted to do, where they wanted to take the franchise in the future, it really does seem like KOTOR is cursed. But I will definitely be keeping an eye on this court case, and if we get any juicy information about the details surrounding the DLC, the downfall of the company over the past year, especially in regards to the remake, I will definitely keep you guys up to date. So make sure you hit that subscribe button to join the biggest growing Knights of the Old Republic community on YouTube. Now, I'm really interested in hearing what you think about this entire debacle. Do you think that Aspyr deserves to be taken to court, or do you think that Mr. Malachi is in the wrong here with his class action lawsuit? Let me know down in the comment section below. As always, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit the like button, it helps me out a great deal, and perhaps consider checking out my channel store for some awesome KOTOR inspired merch. I'll see you guys in the next video. But until then, may the Force be with you. Always.